Amazing Tuesday program, interviewing and talking Torah with special guests. Today we have with us Reb Shmuel Reichman. Reb Shmuel, how you doing?
Baruch Hashem, such a zechus to be here with you, Rabbi Rav.
Zechus all hours. You're doing so much great things for Klal Yisrael. Yisher Koyach. So tonight's topic, we're going to be talking about achieving your greatness. And that's really, really exciting. We've been having quite a few episodes on this topic, and it's constantly you're getting a lot of great feedback. So we're really excited about it. So let's jump straight into it. You ready, Reb Shmuel?
Ready.
Okay. So let's focus for a moment on the words "your greatness," right? Mm-hmm. What does that mean, right? And doesn't everyone have the same greatness to achieve?
Such a good question. So first of all, it's such a zechus to be here. And to all of our listeners, I hope we're going to be able to develop some really deep and inspiring ideas here today. So in terms of the question of your greatness, I think, first of all, there are so many Bali Machshava discuss these important concepts. Reb Chal talks about how your job in life is to become you. And the Vilna Gaon says that when you were a fetus in the womb, you were shown not only your unique purpose, but how it fit into the grand purpose of the world, and how you're basically in this world to discover who you are and what your unique purpose is. So there's this general idea that it's not that everyone's the same. It's not that everyone has the same purpose. Not that there's this one totem pole, one demarcation of what is greatness. You have to strive for that, objective greatness. It is about self-awareness. It's about discovering who you are. And the Rambam says that everyone can be a tzaddik like Moshe Rabbeinu. And everyone says, listen, we could all become great, but like Moshe Rabbeinu, is that true? So Reb Elchanan Waxman says tzaddik means to become your unique, perfect self. And that is different for everyone. So you can become a tzaddik not compared to Moshe Rabbeinu, but like Moshe Rabbeinu fulfilled his purpose and found his unique tafkid, so to speak, we can each fulfill our unique purpose and achieve our unique perfection. But I want to actually, if it's okay with you, I want to delve a little deeper into this question, because I think that in general, people like to focus on the uniqueness. And I remember when I was younger and I was living in Shalom for a couple of years, I dreamt of becoming great. I dreamt of striving for greatness. I used to ask myself this question: what is greatness? How can we really become great? How can I become great? And what does that mean? And I think that uniqueness is obviously fundamental. And no one's going to question that. But I do think that many people tend to focus on the uniqueness and they forget about the foundation. And I think that the greatest mashal for me is a building. If you want to build an extraordinary building, you have to have a strong foundation. If you want to build a skyscraper, hundreds of stories, you got to work on the foundation before you start building it. And I think we live in a generation where everyone is obsessed with the uniqueness question and how to find your uniqueness. And despite the fact that is so fundamental and so important, we forget about the ikarim. We forget about that which is essential, that which is fundamental towards the foundation itself. And I want to just spend a few minutes talking about that, because if you want to build a skyscraper, if you imagine your life as a skyscraper, you can't start focusing on how nice you're going to make the 47th floor and how you're going to decorate the windows if you don't build that strong, incredible foundation, because everything is going to fall down. And you often have, and in my experience, traveling the world and speaking in different countries and coaching countless clients, I've seen so many people's lives fall apart because they've never built that strong foundation. They never, either they're burnt out, they're unbalanced. We all can think about our own life where there are certain aspects in our life which are going so well. And then there are certain aspects in our life which either we're not paying attention to or we want to be working on them, but they're just falling apart. So let's say you're really focusing on your self-development. How are your relationships doing? And if your relationships are going well, maybe your self-development is going well. Maybe your spirituality, your connection with Hashem, maybe that's just falling on the wayside. Or how are your finances doing? How's your health? So often we don't build a foundation for our lives which take care of, so to speak, the platform of who we're going to be. We focus on one thing that we're really good at. We focus on something that we really enjoy, and everything else seems to fall apart. And what I think is really important, especially when we talk about our tafkid and finding your uniqueness in life, especially in Judaism, is before we focus on the uniqueness, which I want to delve into in a few minutes, I think it's so important to really establish what is the foundation. What are we thinking about when we talk about a foundation to build your life, your tafkid, your unique purpose on? And in Judaism, I think people like to specialize. And to specialize, once again, you need a foundation. So for example, Judaism, the central aspect of Judaism is halacha. And when I was studying at Ritz getting smicha, it was such an amazing zechus, amazing opportunity to delve into all the intricacies of different halachic topics and to do shimush and see how a posek paskins. But beyond halacha, which is so fundamental, there's a whole realm of Judaism, which is Gemara Be'in, which is not just delving into the practical, but it's delving into the inner dynamics, the infinite wisdom of Torah. And I had the tremendous zechus, the privilege to spend years and years learning Gemara Be'in with the Rosenzweig Shalita in YU, and to delve into a sugya. You take a Gemara and you understand how it reverberates through all of Shas, and how all of the sugyas in Shas are connected, and how you try to really contemplate the inner meaning of halacha, and you try to understand what is going on here. Of course we do this, but where does this come from? And you source it back, and you delve into the theories and ideas, and you become, it's delving into the source of why we are who we are and what we're doing. But there's a whole nother aspect, which is, okay, in addition to Gemara Be'in, what about your character? What about Musar? What about, working on your midos? What about self-analysis and self-awareness and understanding who you are, why you are, how you work, why you work, what are you doing? How can you become more aware of yourself, your weaknesses, your strengths, how to really understand how to align your life with the Ratzon Hashem, with Hashem's will. And then that's not enough, because then we have machshava. We have machshava be'in, where you delve, anyone who's had the opportunity to delve into the beautiful ideas of the Maharel and the Ramchal, Nefesh HaChaim. We live in a world full of beautiful Malabali machshava nowadays. Moshe Shapir just passed away, Kiva Tatz. It's delving into the deepest existential questions of life itself. Why are we here? Why was the world created? What's the nature of reality? Who is Hashem? What do we mean when we say Hashem? How can we say anything about Hashem? He's beyond the words. What are the limitations of speech and thought? And what's the connection between the physical and the spiritual, the finite and the infinite? And one second, there's so many aspects of Judaism. We have halacha, gemara, machshava, musar, but then we live in a world, this is a newer phenomenon, but still has always been part of the essential aspect of living a Jewish life, is inspiration. We live in a world of inspiration. We have, Charlie Harari in the non-Jewish world that's, full of inspiration. We have, all the great inspirational speakers. Where does inspiration, you want to be filled with passion and fervor. You want to be living a life of vibrancy. You want to have it's about understanding the power of identity, the power of perception, the power of living with purpose. And I've spent years studying the greatest minds in positive psychology and inspiration and public speaking, because if you want to help people live a life of truth, it's not enough to just tell them the facts and share beautiful, deep ideas of Torah. You have to also inspire a will within the listener that they want this type of life. And for a lot of people, whether that's ideal or not ideal, the truth is not enough. You have to want it. It has to be exciting. It has to be vibrant. You have to be inspired. And I think one of the most fundamental questions in the world today is Mada, is how do you approach the questions of the physical world and science? And the Ramchal discusses the beauty of seeing the physical as an expression of the spiritual. Whereas Stakel Baraisa Bar Alma, the Midrash says that Hashem looked into the Torah and created the world as an expression of Torah. The physical world, both the physical and the wisdom of the physical world, is an expression of the spiritual. And I can tell you, one of the things I like to talk about is how I've studied at Harvard, I studied at the University of Chicago, and there's a Maimer Chazal that if someone tells you that there's Torah amongst Goyim, don't believe them. If someone tells you there's wisdom amongst Goyim, believe them. There's no
Chachma b'goyim tamim, yes, wisdom.
Exactly. So there's no Torah amongst Goyim. But if you understand how to see the realms of science and psychology and mathematics and understand how that's an expression of Torah. The Vilna Gaon loved mathematics. The Rambam was a philosopher. The Ramchal studied and really taught medical students. If you understand how the physical world doesn't contradict the spiritual, but it's an expression of it, then you learn how to live an inspired life in this world, and you uplift the physical world to be a reflection of the spiritual. So I think one of the most incredible questions when it comes to finding your uniqueness is, have you first built a strong foundation? Have you really covered the bases? Because of course there's going to be a Baal Machshava, there's going to be a Baal Moser, there's going to be a Baal Gemara Be'in, there's going to be a Baal Halacha, a Posek, and you can specialize and find your uniqueness. But if you're not balanced with your foundation, if you haven't really said, am I covered on all aspects of a Torah life, then you can't specialize. If you're trying to be, let's say you want to be a speaker and you want to share Torah, but you're not inspired yourself, you're not excited about Torah, who's going to want to listen to you? And if you are, let's say, if you're Baal Machshava, you don't know Halacha, you don't know Gemara, how can that be? That doesn't make sense. So before we talk about uniqueness, I think one of the most important things that I find is that people need to really build a strong foundation. You need to say, before I work on becoming a master of a certain craft, have I really built a strong foundation in life? And once you balance and once you build that foundation, I think then we can talk about beginning the stage of finding your uniqueness. And I think an important qualification, though, is that it's not always chronological. It's not that you spend 10 years working on your foundation and then you start building your uniqueness, because there's a beautiful idea that Reishis Chacham Yiras Hashem. So the first part of Chacham is Yiras Hashem, but there's another pasuk that talks about the opposite. That in order to get Chachma, Reishis Chachma Yiras Hashem, but in order to get Yiras Hashem, you have to have Chachma. So which one is it? So it's not chronological. They overflow into each other. When you have Chachma, when you understand the deepest principles of life, that inspires Yira. The Ramchal defines Yira not as fear, but as awe. It's a higher level of Yira. You're just awe-inspired by Kodesh Baruch Hu. But when you're awe-inspired by Kodesh Baruch Hu, you delve deeper into Chachma Satorah, and you get more Chachma, and that creates more Yira. So which one comes first? Okay, so it's a little complicated. Maybe Chachma comes first, maybe Yira comes first, but at the end of the day, they're overflowing into each other. And the more that you invest into your foundation, the more your uniqueness will become expressed. And the more that you start really fulfilling your tafka, the more you can invest into your foundation. So I think it is important that even though we do talk about building the foundation first, it's not like, you have one stage of your life where you build a foundation and you have another stage of life where you invest in uniqueness. It's like the example I like to give is giving. Everyone wants to contribute something to the world, but to contribute something to the world, you have to invest in yourself. You can only give what you have. You want to give $1 million to tzedakah? That's wonderful. You have to first have $1 million. You want to teach a shir? That's great. You have to first learn Torah. You want to do chesed? You have to have the gifts to give. So what is it? First, you spend a couple of years investing in yourself, and then you spend your whole life giving? No, it's always going to be back and forth. You're always going to have to continue investing in yourself and then expressing outwards. And the more you express outwards, the more you're going to be able to invest in yourself. Obviously, the first stage is investing in yourself, but it's a lifelong balance.
Unbelievable. Amazing.
And then I think the next question, this is a question which I think people struggle with the most, is that I think everyone who's listening to this has heard at least once in their life that we all have a unique purpose, that you have something unique to contribute to the world, that Kadosh Baruch Hu created you in a unique way. And almost everyone I've spoken to, especially on a one-on-one basis, has said, okay, I heard this, I have no idea how. I have no idea what that means. I have no idea how to find my uniqueness. So what does that mean for me? How do I do it? And this is where I think that there's no single, I give a whole course, Self-Mastery Academy, because many people like the one fix, like this one idea is going to change your life. You need a system in life. You need, there's no such thing as like one principle that encompasses everything. You need a system. You need to go through all the different principles that then, so to speak, connect with each other to develop something powerful. But if I would say that there's one most important, the most foundational and fundamental principle for finding your uniqueness, it's developing self-awareness. It's understanding who you are. I mean, most people are, I wouldn't say horrified, but they're not too inclined to spend time by themselves. We live in the world of, constant input. You're always being, you want to have a phone on you. You want to have some way to engage. That's why Shabbos is very hard for some people, because as opposed to being the most delightful experience of self, of who you've become, you can't have any input of media, of whatever it is. You have to really come face to face with who you are.
Just connect in order to connect. Shabbos.
Exactly. Ah, beautiful. I love that. I love that. So I think that the most important aspect of finding your uniqueness is taking some time to really ask yourself, do you know who you are?
Powerful.
And why don't you know who you are? Why don't you? No one knows themselves completely, but most people really don't know themselves because they've never taken the time to fall in love with themselves. They've never taken the time to spend time with themselves, to get to know who they are, why they are, what makes you tick, what makes you work, why do you do what you do? Have you ever decided consciously to eat what you eat, to spend time with the people you spend time with, to do what you do, to think about what you think about, to read what you read? Have you mindfully constructed your life? And then I think the real next stage is to explore that, to fall in love with yourself, to invest into yourself, to talk to yourself. Most people don't talk to themselves, but if you don't talk to yourself, you're not going to know yourself. You need to, most people spend so much time trying to be liked by other people, trying to become friends with other people. They never spent that time doing it with themselves. And I can tell you that if you don't like yourself, there's no way that you can like someone else, and there's no way anyone else can like you. The first and most important foundation is to build self-love. You have to love someone else like you love yourself. Make sure that first you love yourself. And the next stage is continuously building higher levels of self-awareness. To understand that, in the mashal I like to give is that the analogy is that most people think that spiritual growth is moving up. You're transcending, you're elevating to higher levels of spiritual growth. I think that another equally powerful analogy is that it's not only about moving up, but it's also about moving deeper and deeper within yourself. And we can go into this, we can spend a whole hour talking about the machshava behind that and the deeper thought behind that. But so much of life is delving deeper into who you are. What makes you, what drives you, and you want to explore. So many people don't know what talents or what skills they could develop because they've never tried it. I always say that my ultimate hakar satov takash baruch Hu, my ultimate gratitude to Hashem, is that I had so much extra time in 12th grade and I taught myself how to play guitar and piano. So, that's a skill that I never went in, and I was so bad. My dad used to come into my room and I used to ask him, like, how's it sound? He used to be like, sounds good. It was awful. But after months and months, I eventually was able to, think of something and play the guitar. I was able to start writing my own music. It's a skill I never would have developed if I wouldn't have explored it. And so many people, they have so much locked within themselves, and they've never explored it. They've never discovered who they are because they've never gone searching.
That's actually our next question, Reb Shmuel. The fact that in life, people are scared to explore things because they don't want to, they're scared of a failure, and they don't want to change because, they have fear of failing. So how does one overcome this fear? What do you suggest?
That's such a good question. So I will say this. Before we talk about fear, which I want to get to in like 1 minute, I will just say, to leave off our last section in terms of your uniqueness, the ultimate goal, I think fear really ties so well into this. The ultimate goal, if you were to ask me what's the ultimate goal in terms of uniqueness, it would be to find something, in addition to building a strong foundation, finding things that you love, it would be building a life where you build a life around something that you love, something that you're really good at, because a lot of people they love things, but they're not good at it. A lot of people love to sing, they're not such great singers. So a lot of people are really great at things, but they don't love it. You have to have both, which is very special. You have to find a way to use what you love and what you're good at to help other people. And if you want to really build a career, which a lot of people, they don't love what they do. They don't love their job. So the ideal is to find a way to make a living doing that. And I always say that if you can provide enough value to people, then you can make a living doing it. So if you have those 4 things, if you love it, you're really good at it, you can help other people, and you can make a living, that's the ultimate goal in terms of finding your uniqueness in life. Now, not everyone is zocheh to do that. Not everyone wants to have all 4. A lot of people, they want to make a living and then do what they love on the side. That's another model. And that's 100% okay. But for those who want to be able to really have that ultimate synthesis, it takes first having that goal and then really paving your path. And then I think this ties perfectly into this next question, which is fear. And I can tell you that fear is that which inhibits so many dreams. And so many people, They don't strive for their greatness, and they don't try to create their ultimate selves because of fear. And I think that before we talk about fear for striving for greatness, I think it is important to first state that greatness is not always about being in the spotlight. It's not always about being the person on the front lines. We said, hitting that big, shot in public. Not everyone wants or needs to be the person on the front lines. The person behind the scenes who's making everything running is sometimes doing a lot more than the person on the front lines. But nevertheless, there is, I would say, that which inhibits and that which prevents most people from really striving is fear. And I think we have this question of what is it that holds people back? Why are people so scared? Well, what is fear? Is fear real? Are people, there's real fear where people are afraid of dying. You don't want to fall off a cliff. But what are people so afraid of? So I think the best way to approach fear is to take a step back and ask in general. And I don't want to, this is one of my favorite topics. We'll spend a few minutes on this if that's okay.
Sure, of course.
Is why don't people strive for greatness in addition to fear? Because we're going to go into fear. But I think that before we talk about fear, there are so many people who have never even considered the possibility that they are capable of striving for greatness. And I think that the number one reason for that is because they don't have an empowering identity. I mean, when you look in the mirror, how do you see yourself? For all of our listeners, how many of us naturally wake up in the morning and say, I am capable of greatness. I'm destined for great things. For most people, as long as they're surviving, as long as they think, okay, all of the bad things that happen to me, at least I know Hashem loves me, that's enough. But do people really think they're capable of greatness, of changing the world, of impacting others, inspiring others? I think that so many people, they struggle either because, number one, they've never decided who they are. They don't have that self-awareness that we talked about. They don't, people only wake up at a certain point in life where they say, who am I? But way before the midlife crisis, we have, when you're a teenager, when you're a young adult, we're in a society, you're enslaved by culture, you worry about what your friends think, what your parents think, what your teachers think. So many people, I remember I had a colleague who came crying to me once, and he said he just came from a funeral, and they were talking about this person's legacy and what he stood for and what he fought for in his life, what he stood. And he's telling me, I've never asked myself these questions. I don't know what I stand for. I don't even know who I am. So I think the first question that we need to ask ourselves is, have we ever chosen identity? And I think that a lot of us need to start with that. We need to really start thinking, who are we and what do we want to build in life? But I think even those who have built an identity or have things they want to do, they still don't do it because either they don't think it's possible. Remember, in order to be safe, most parents will tell people to be normal, to be practical, not to strive for greatness, not to be a dreamer. No parent wants their child to fail. So it's really strange. Very often the people who love their children the most will try to crush their dreams because they don't want them to fail and be homeless and not have a parnasa. So very often it's the parents, it's society that holds people back from really striving because, and then people grew up thinking that they're just normal, that they're not capable of doing something extraordinary. They're not capable of making a difference. They're convinced they're normal. They don't have that self-confidence, that self-worth that they need. And I think that when you're convinced that you're not capable of greatness, how many people will try? How many people will actually strive for it? And I think that the lie that a lot of people then tell themselves is that I'm comfortable with being okay. I like being okay. I like being normal, being average. I don't want to, go outside of my comfort zone, because I think that very often at that stage, we convince ourselves that this is just who I am. This is who I've always been. This is who I am now, and this is who I will always be. And it's people have a fixed mindset. They don't allow themselves to be flexible, to say, I'm elastic. I can become anything. I'm a chiluk of the time. I'm a literal aspect of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. I'm infinite now. Like, I'm me. I do my thing. I'm comfortable where I am. And we basically come to believe our lies that we tell ourselves, which is that this is who I'm going to be. And I think that if we really want to take it now in the direction of fear, I think that there are multiple aspects of fear. There's the fear of failure. What's going to happen if I try and I mess up? What will my friends think of me? What will my parents think? What will my spouse think? What will my children think? What will I think of myself? And then I think there's the fear of the pain and struggle of, if I actually do this, if I actually commit, I'm going to have to give things up. If I go on a diet, I'm going to have to give up all the foods I like. If I start exercising, what about that time? What about, I know it's painful. If I want to become a Talmud Chacham, you know how little I know now? You know how hard it is for me to delve into a Sugi and Gemara? I can barely, understand the basic shot, let alone the Rishonim, let alone Rashi and Tostos. How am I supposed to do this? And obviously you have the famous midrash that Tzaddik looks at the mountain and says, wow, it's a mountain. I get to climb up a little more every day. And the Rasha says, I'll never get to the top. What's the point of trying? But that's a genuine fear, is that it's painful to go through that experience. Why would I want to overcome so much challenge when I can just play it safe and stay in my comfort zone? And I think the most underrated aspect of fear is that some people are afraid that they might actually succeed. And what if I succeed and I'm not capable of handling it? What if I succeed and it's just too much for me? I'm just not ready. And, I would say that a lot of people, the vision of themselves is too small. That they say, I want to strive for this dream, but I don't want to be in that dream because that's too much for me. I can't handle it. The pressure's too much. I'll be so, I won't be able to, the anxiety. So I want to delve into this topic of fear, because I think it's a great topic. I will just say that I think there's a couple, just to finish off the topic of greatness, because one of my favorite topics, when I was in Shalavim, I began really thinking about, why isn't everyone great? Why don't we live in a world where everyone is spending all day, every day, striving for greatness? And I became really just in love with this topic of what drives people. Why do we do what we do? Why is it there are just a few people that are striving for greatness and they have to, go out and inspire everyone else? Why isn't everyone doing this? And I think that part of it is really, it feeds into that exact narrative, which is that so many people, they want to be normal. They want to fit in. And if you want to be great, that means that you're going to be different. And then people are going to judge you. They're going to look at you. They're going to say, oh, you think you're so good. Who do you think you are? Or, you're going to lose your friends. You're going to lose so much of what it means to be normal. And people aren't willing to give that up. They want to be safe. They want to be accepted. I mean, if you think about it, it's more of an existential question, but people wake up in their lives and they say, what's going on? I exist, but why do I exist? Why am I in this world? And for so many people, in order to feel validated, in order to feel like they're doing the right thing in life, they have to feel that everyone accepts who they are and why they do what they do. So if they start doing things different, if they start making new decisions, a new lifestyle, everyone starts to question them, and then they start to question themselves. And many people don't have the self-confidence to really believe in the truth of striving. So they'd rather just play it safe and just kind of tuck those dreams and those ambitions and that real drive to become great. They tuck it in the back of the back of their minds, the back of their consciousness. And every time they hear an inspirational speech, it gets woken up again, and they say, maybe I should really go for that. But then, then they fall asleep, and then, the next day they go right back to it. And I will just say that one or two last points, because this is such an incredible topic. One or two last points is that there are people who do try. There are people who do try, but they still never reach their full potential. And there's a couple reasons. Number one is that there are people who they want to be great, but they really, all they want is to be good enough. So when people look at them, they say, oh, that's a good guy. That's a Talmud Chacham, or that's a Tzaddikus. Oh, she's such a Balat Midah. She is such a great guy. So they don't actually want to become great. They want to become great enough that when people look at them, they think, wow, that's a special person. And that's not motivated by greatness. That's motivated by wanting other people to accept you. So it's a different version of wanting to, so to speak, be liked by others. But as opposed to just being normal and fit again, you want to be the role model. You want to be someone who's better than everyone else, but not too good. Because if you're too good, then who knows what will happen? People won't like it. And another one, which is a little nuanced, is so many people, they strive for greatness, but they constantly compare themselves to those around them. So they want to be the greatest in the room. And what they do is they don't compare themselves to who they were yesterday, which is the ideal. You say, like, who am I? Where am I going? Who do I want to be? And you constantly compare yourself to yourself. You say, okay, what can I become? What is the absolute max that I can become? And I'll tell you, the secret is there are no limits to what you could become. But what people do is they say, when I walk into a room, I want to be the smartest in the room, or I want to be the funniest in the room, or I want to be, and all they want is to be better than those around them, so that when they look at those around them, they have the self-confidence to say, I'm the best. But you're playing small, because number one, that by definition limits who you're becoming. Because as soon as you hit being the best in the room, you stop growing, because what's the point? You're better than everyone. And there's, the greatest Gedolim, they never stop. The greatest people, they never stop, because they're never looking around. They're never saying, okay, I'm the Gadol Hador, like I'm done. No, it's you have the opportunity every day to become more, and you fall in love with the journey itself. And if we can just build one or two more stages, there are those who do strive for greatness, but they keep pushing, but they give up. And the reason they give up is because everyone who has genuinely strived for greatness, they experience plateaus. They hit a brick wall. They lose the inspiration. They get tired. And when you get tired, it's so easy to give up. You find yourself striving. You say, like, why am I doing this? What's the point of it all? And you might forget why you started in the first place. You might say, I've come far enough. This is enough for me. And the Ramchal and the Vilna Gaon talk about how, Maharal talks about this too, how Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem will take away the inspiration at times, so that you have to genuinely earn it. Because it is so easy to talk a big talk, play a big game, and to really push and be inspired when everything in your life is going well. When your health is good and your finance is good, and your relationships are going well, and you're being mechadesh great ideas in Torah, coming up with great novel ideas, and everything in your life is going well. It's so easy. But what about when things are hard? What about when you lose the inspiration? When things start to fall apart? Where chas v'shalom, you lose a loved one or you get sick. It's not easy. And what happens? A lot of people, they slow down, they stop, they take a break, and breaks are great. But what about when you just say, maybe I'll lower my standards. Maybe I'm not supposed to be striving for these great things. So the Ramchal says that's really HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem gives you those challenges to really make you earn it, to make you deserve it, to allow you to put everything you have, all your kochos, all your strength, all of your power, to really invest yourself into it. And a lot of people, even if they are striving, they'll slow down or stop at that stage. And I'll leave off, and this is for I want people to think about this, because this is maybe the most powerful reason why people don't become actually great, is there are people who have achieved levels of greatness, levels of success, but they're not really pushing to the max. So they might be a Rosh Yeshiva, they might be a Menahel, they might be a Rebbe or a Posek, they might be doing great things, but they're not going to the max. They're not pushing into the unknown, because they're doing what is, so to speak, is easy and known for them. So if you're already a leader, if you're already, let's say you've spent 25 years striving for greatness, what happens if you take that next step? First of all, people who are already on the front lines, people who are doing great things, it's really hard for them to continue growing, because if you want to start a new thing, if you've been a leader for 20 years, you want to start at the bottom of a new aspect of your life. What happens if you look like a fool? You mess up. No one wants to go from being a leader to looking like, they're starting from I've built my whole life. So a lot of people, they stay safe and, so to speak, what they're good at, and they don't continue going into the unknown, because that means that, and that's like, Avram Avinu. There's different approaches when he started his journey, but 48, depending on which opinion of the Gemara, which opinion of the Midrash, to when you're at an old age to start something new, to be willing, even after spending your whole life doing something great, to then say, okay, I know I've mastered this, but now I'm going to start doing this, and I'm going to start from like where other people are 18. when they're starting that category, and I'm gonna look like well, what happens if people have a video of me trying this, and it goes out that I look like a fool. So there are people who are not willing to walk into the unknown. They will stay doing what is, so to speak, easy, what is known to them. It's a relative comfort zone because other people look at them once again and they say, these people are good, these people are extraordinary. But for them, they know they're staying within what's comfortable, what's easy. And I think that the true aspect of greatness, the true infinite nature of what it means to be in this world, is that you are never done and you are never finished and there are no limits. And you can literally achieve anything. If you spend enough time, enough focus, have enough amunah, enough faith on Kadosh Baruch Hu, you can achieve anything. But let's get back to the question of fear. Because I think that fear is, and Rabbi Meirav, I think this really hits the nail on the head, because I think this is, so many people, they live their lives in fear. And everyone on the outside pretty much looks the same. But on the inside, everyone is going through their own battles. And everyone is scared. Everyone is scared. And I will tell you that when I was much younger, I used to be scared of public speaking, scared of building genuine, real relationship, of being vulnerable, letting myself be seen, of not being good enough for my friends, not being good enough for other people. And so many people, they struggle with this and they live their whole lives caged with fear. And I just began asking myself when I was younger, like, how do you overcome this? We talked about like greatness and why people don't do it, but okay, that's great. How do you do it? Like, how do you overcome fear? And I want to share some ideas with you. These ideas, they changed my life. As you can clearly see, I'm not scared of public speaking anymore. Kadosh Baruch Hu is incredible. But so many people, they really understand that fear is holding them back, but they want to know how to overcome it. So I want to go into this for a few minutes, just to share a couple of ideas. And I think that before we go into the different aspects of fear, most fear is not real. Most fear is something that we create in our minds. And there's genuine fear, like we said, if you're on a cliff, you're scared of falling off, because if you fall off, you're gonna die. So that's a good fear. That's a rational fear. But most fear is just fear of uncertainty. Like, what's gonna happen? I don't know what's gonna happen. Or you're scared of being vulnerable. Like for a lot of people, they come to me, they're dating and they're having a really hard time being open with the person they're dating, to share who they are, what they believe in, their values, their vulnerabilities, their weaknesses. Because what happens if someone sees who you really are and they judge you? They don't like what they see. A lot of people, they never really open up because they're afraid that if they open up, they'll be crushed. They've never actually been crushed. So they don't even know, but they're just afraid of the what if, and they can't build a real relationship. So whether it's relationships, whether it's being vulnerable and sharing your actual thoughts with other people, because a lot of people, if they shared themselves with other people and they were rejected or knocked down, they feel like they are knocked down. And then, they live their whole lives locked up. And a lot of people don't want to put themselves out there. They don't want to be, so to speak, vulnerable to what other people think. So they stay safe, they stay quiet, they don't really share themselves. And one of my favorite lines is that fear stands for false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. It's just an excuse that we make. We make these excuses, and when we make excuses, we usually get to keep them. We get to keep our limitations. And I think that the first and most important way to overcome fear is to recognize that it's a mental construct. It's an illusion that we create to protect ourselves. And if we learn to attack the things we're scared of, if we learn to, meaning for anyone who's overcome a fear, before we actually talk about how to overcome it, the moment that you realize that your fears are just illusions that you create, you start questioning, what I spent my whole life not doing all of these things that I could have been doing because of these fears that aren't real. And the moment you start realizing that all the things that are holding you back, all of these paradigm shifts that you could make, all of the perspectives and perceptions that you have on these things that aren't real, that you say, I can't do that. That's not for me. I'm not capable of that. No, that wouldn't be good. All of those things aren't true. You realize that you can actually do anything. And there's so many great stories about this. That one time, a person once time told me a story that every day on the way back from work, he would take a different path home, because when he went down a certain block, there was this really angry, it was like a bulldog, right? It was a really angry bulldog, and he was really scared of the bulldog. And for months, he took a different path home. And then one day he went down that path, and the bulldog chased after him. And he was scared the bulldog was going to like rip his face off. So he's like running as fast as the bulldog caught him. And when the bulldog came up to him, he saw the bulldog and there was no teeth in the bulldog's mouth. So for months and months and months, he's been running away from something that has no teeth. And I thought that's literally the greatest mashal for fear. We run away from all of these things that we think they're going to destroy us, they're going to rip us apart, and they have no teeth. And
Amazing. I got to tell you, Shmuel, the chizuk, the inspiration is 2 thumbs up. And we'll jump to the next question, which is, one roadblock to greatness is pushing things off. People right now listening, the audience, I know for a fact, the thousands of people, they're all like, okay, we're ready. But some people are saying, right now I'm in the middle of school, I'm in the middle of, I'm about to give birth, maybe a mother is saying, or maybe I'm about to, the summer's coming, maybe they're pushing it off. But we know in Perkei Avot, in Ethics of Our Father, it says, Im lo avshavim, if not now, when? So once we are inspired to improve, like we all are right now, how do we act on the moment?
Oh, that's such a good question. That is such a good question. So here's what I would suggest. I would suggest that number one, you want to immediately take control of that inspiration. So the moment that you have that inspiration, I would say that, if I were to be honest, inspiration is great. Inspiration, dreams, they're fantastic. But at the end of the day, they're just that. They're dreams. It's inspiration. And a dream without goals is just a dream. An inspiration without goals is fleeting. And I think we live in a world, just like we talked about how people love uniqueness, people love inspiration. But my biggest pet peeve, I love inspiration. I love delving into halacha and gemara be'ina, machshava and musar and mada and the world of wisdom. As much as I love inspiration, my biggest pet peeve is that so many people, they just want the inspiration. And that's, I would say, I don't want to be harsh, but that is one of the biggest lies that Kadosh Baruch Hu allowed us to live within. Because a life of inspiration is really nothing unless you act on that inspiration. And the real goal is to make those dreams and inspiration a reality. And the way to do that is immediately write it down. Set up concrete, tangible steps so that you can act on that inspiration. And I would say that have huge goals, but then make bite-sized goals. So I just gave a talk to a graduating class, and I was telling them how you're about to go out into the world, and this is a time of dreams, but create huge goals, like lifelong goals, but then create yearly goals, then create monthly goals, then weekly goals, day goals, so that your year is heading towards your ultimate life. Your month is heading towards that yearly goal. Your week is directed towards that monthly goal. And each day is towards your weekly goal, which is really towards your lifetime goal. So your whole life becomes oriented to achieving greatness. You want to construct a life, create a lifestyle. That means surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded, who understand your values. That means creating an environment within your house. People don't want to eat unhealthy food, but they have unhealthy food lying around their whole house. You want to eat healthy, surround yourself with healthy food. You want to be positive, surround yourself with positive people. You want to learn more, surround yourself with Sfarim. Create a life, an environment of Torah, of thought, of growth. And it's so easy to talk about it, but so people, they like the inspiration phase, but we need to act on it. And that's the key. So you want to create concrete, tangible action points. And the next step is create external accountability. That's a life changer. For people who want to work out, what happens when you're tired? What happens when the alarm goes off at 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, and you're like, I don't want to go? What happens when you start to lose that inspiration? So when you have external accountability, you have a chavrusa to learn with, you have a workout partner. No one wants to be, number one, you want to keep that identity if we committed to this together. Number two, you don't want to let him down, right? No one wants to be the person that says, oh, we're going to work out, then we're not going to do it. Oh, we're going to learn every night, but then I don't show up. So when you create something external, as much as, and this is something really important, ideally in life, we would be self-motivated. Do everything from internal will, internal motivation. But Akash Baruch Hu sends you challenges to push you when you're not going that direction yourself. But sometimes we need to create those external pushes ourselves, create external accountability, create a commitment that makes it that it's not just about what I want, but I have to do this now. And the next thing I would say is start talking about it. Tell people, oh, I'm going to do this. Because what happens when you start telling people you're going to do it, there is no way you're not going to do it, because no one wants to be seen like a liar. If you committed to eating healthy, you don't want to be seen with a Snickers, with a Kit Kat, with an ice cream bar. You want to maintain the identity that you convince yourself and other people that you have. So as much as it's amazing to do everything internally, you want to make sure that it's also working from the external motivation as well. And I would say feed the inspiration. Keep that inspiration going. I listen to motivational, inspirational content every single day. I read it. People always ask me, when are you going to stop? I'm going to stop when I die. That's when I'm going to stop. I'm going to go into, there's never a point where you have like the inspirational carry for the rest of your life. You need to feed it. As much as you're going to continue learning and hasmada and continue focusing on growth and working on all aspects of your life, you're never going to, so to speak, have enough inspiration. You have to keep feeding that, feed the flame, keep inspiring yourself. And realize, and this is really, I'll just end off back on a question of fear, just a couple quick points. Number one, have an inspiring why. Like, know why you're doing what you're doing. There's a great line, if you know why you're doing what you're doing, you can overcome any how. If you have a real purpose to life, if you know what's motivating you, why you're doing this, you wake up every morning, it's hard. Life isn't easy, life is really hard. But if you know why you're driving to do it, you can overcome anything. And back to our question of when you really are scared of something, just break it down into simple steps. Acknowledge that, yes, this is scary, but really it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. If you say like, okay, how do I get in good shape? That's overwhelming. How do I become a Talmid Chacham? That's overwhelming. If you break up into small steps, okay, I learn 1 Amud a day. I learn a couple halachas a day. I exercise, just to start off a little slow, exercise 3 times a week. That's doable. So if you create this overwhelming, oh my gosh, how can I do that? Of course you're not going to do it. If you break it up into small steps, if you make it achievable, and then you take responsibility for your life. There's a great line. It's by Earl Nightingale. He says that all of us are self-made, but only the successful among us will admit it. So it's a great line. Obviously, Hashem's the Iker. Hashem's responsible, but there's a powerful kernel of truth in that we have to take responsibility for our lives. We have to, first of all, realize that you can do it. Realize that you could figure it out. So many people, they don't believe that even if they try, it's impossible for me. You can figure it out. It's possible for you. And I would say, just to give a couple things which really have helped me, is you want to build mastery over what you want to do, because so much of what holds people back, really, so much of fear is doubt. You don't really know if you have no idea how to do it, if it's going to work out, if it's not going to work out. When you immerse yourself in it, when it becomes who you are, when you become so engrossed, when someone gives a shir, when someone's a real Talmid Chacham, they don't come before the shir, they say, I have no idea what I'm talking about. No, they have become the sugya. They have become the Torah. They have no doubts before they give the shir. Of course they daven to Hashem. Of course they want Hakadosh Baruch Hu to help them, but they don't doubt their abilities because they know who they are. And when you immerse yourself in it, you have no doubt. And that's really immersion. So many people, they dabble, a little bit here, a little bit there. You want to immerse yourself. And ultimately, you want to have emunah that, despite all the shtalos, all the effort I put in, you have to really have that emunah that Hakadosh Baruch Hu is going to help you as you walk into that unknown. As you really go for it, the Hakadosh Baruch Hu is going to help you succeed.
Rabbi, unbelievable. Chazaq. Wow, what inspiration. Many can't stop themselves from making excuses. But we know from a story in the Gemara that Eina davar tolui ela bi. The matter depends on me alone. How does one remove the excuse button from their minds? Many people find excuses. What do you suggest?
It's a great question. That's a great question. We mentioned a second ago how, first of all, when you make excuses, you get to keep your limitations. So a lot of people say, I'm not unhealthy, I'm just thick boned. So, okay, great. You're just never going to get in shape. You convince yourself that I can't, I'm not a Talmud Chacham. I don't have a sharp head. I'm not like that. Okay, great. So you're never going to become Talmud Chacham. When you make an excuse, number one, you get to keep it. But why do we make excuses? Why? Meaning, of course, if you make an excuse, you get to keep the limitation that you made an excuse for, but why do we do it? So number one, it's hard to grow. It's hard, it's uncomfortable. We don't want to leave our comfort zone. And once again, we're afraid of failure. We're afraid that, okay, what if I try and I mess up? What if I try and I succeeded and it's not what I wanted, or it's too much for me? Or it really gets back into everything we've been talking about. Most people don't even think it's possible for them. They don't think that they're capable, so they make these excuses. You need to have a paradigm shift of how you see yourself. You need to start convincing yourself that you are extraordinary, you are capable of greatness, you are infinite, you are connected to the infinite, you have unbelievable talent within you just waiting to be discovered, and you want to surround yourself with the right people. So much is the story we feed ourselves, the identity we reinforce. And to realize you can change your identity, you can choose to change your self-talk. I cannot tell you how many people, they say the most horrible things to themselves. And it's enough that we can't control what other people say to us, but why would you want to tell yourself? Why would you want to, like, a lot of people look in the mirror and they're like, they say they don't like who they are or what they see. And you have to realize that there's nothing that you cannot do. And you can change how you see yourself, how you talk about yourself. You can change your identity. I'll just share one quick story. Sure. One of my favorite stories. There was a boy who was in a math class. It was a graduate math class, and he fell asleep. He was, learning night seder till midnight, whatever it was. He was, really staggering away. He fell asleep, and he woke up, and there were two math problems on the board. And he wrote down the homework, and he went home, and he spent the whole weekend trying to work on these math problems, and he couldn't. He couldn't figure them out. He just read the textbooks, did online research, couldn't figure them out. Spent countless hours, spending all of Thursday night, and then, obviously after his night seder, and then he, was working on it before Shabbos, and then he was spent Masi Shabbos, spent Sunday, and he was so afraid he was not going to be able to succeed in this homework problem. And Sunday night, he cracked one of the problems. Cracked the problem. And then he came, but the other one he couldn't figure out. So he came to class and he had a little sheepish head down. He went over to the professor and I said, "Sorry, professor, I was only able to solve one of the problems." Professor said, what are you talking about? Which problem? So the homework problems. I didn't give any homework. You didn't hear? I said there's no homework for the weekend. He said, what are you talking about? What about the two homework problems on the board? The professor said, what? And he started looking over the work, and the professor turned white in the face. And he said, that wasn't homework. Mm-hmm. Those are two impossible, unsolvable math problems that no one's ever been able to solve. You just did the impossible. Now, why did he do the impossible? Because in his mind, that was homework. You were supposed to do it. He didn't hear that it is impossible. He didn't hear that you're not even supposed to try. He didn't hear that no one's ever done it. He just saw a math problem. And so many of us, we start with the narrative, with the story. If you hear that it's impossible, if you convince yourself it's impossible, if you know that you're not supposed to try, you're not supposed to do it, we don't. We make these excuses because it's easy and because we don't want to go into that unknown. But if you stop telling yourselves those excuses, stop telling yourself that you're not capable, but realize you can do anything. That's the idea. HaKadosh Baruch Hu took Avram above the mazals, above the stars. What does that mean? The Gemara says it was Hashem saying, "In Mazli Yisrael," and the Mefarshim say that means that there is no limits. There is no Mazel is nature. Those are the rules of cause and effect, natural, logic, mathematics. Those rules don't apply to you once you realize that you're connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So if you change your identity, realize you can do anything, then all limitations start to fade away.
Unbelievable, Reb Shmuel. Wow, what inspiration, what chizuk. I wish we could just go on and on forever because this is like such a...
this is inspiring me too. This is incredible.
But unfortunately, the time is wrapping up, and we're going to ask you one final question, which is if you could leave us with one final thought about this topic we have tonight to our broad audience.
Always the best question to end off on. Honestly, I would tell you the best advice I ever got and it came a turning point for my life, which, as simple as it sounds, is the most powerful advice you can ever hear. And it's never give up. Never, ever, ever give up. Because as hard as your life is, and as much as we're all going through, and no one knows what you're going through because no one understands your experience of life. No one knows what you've gone through. No one experiences your emotions. No one knows what you're thinking. No one knows what you're actually going through. Never, ever give up. And I would say, tell yourself 2 words. Tell yourself, it's possible. That's it. Is it guaranteed? No. Is it possible? Is it possible for you to achieve your greatness? Is it possible for you to achieve your dreams? Is it possible for you to achieve that extraordinary life that you dream of? Is it possible? Yes. Because when you live with the possibility, your entire life changes, because everyone wants to, what's guaranteed, what's safe, what's practical, what's automatic. No. Don't live your life that way. Live your life with asking yourself those 2 words. Asking yourself, is it possible? Those are 3 words, but telling yourself 2 words, it's possible. And when you realize that you really can achieve anything, you can achieve anything you set your mind to. And when you live your life, 100% hishtadlus, 100% emunah. People often ask, how much hishtadlus, how much emunah? And it's not like, some hishtadlus, some emunah. It's 100% hishtadlus, 100% emunah. You have to go all in, 100% immersion, every single day. And you have to also realize that 100% comes from Hashem. It's not some and some, it's a paradox. You live your life all in. And when you live your life like that, and you realize that anything is possible, then you live such an amazing life because you really strive. You spend every day, and it becomes the most extraordinary life imaginable. But remember, never give up, and anything is possible if you put your mind to it.
Wow, Reb Shmuel Reichman, I'm so impressed. What a chizuk, what an inspiration. Achieving your greatness, we could all do it. We could all become great, as we heard so eloquently, so beautifully given over by our dear friend Reb Shmuel Reichman Shlita. Yeshakach, thank you very much, Reb Shmuel, for the inspiration. Reb Shmuel is constantly giving shirim, the classes, the lectures. It's all over the place. So many people are being inspired. We appreciate your time. And we want to remind our audience every single Tuesday, Baruch Hashem, we have these inspiring, timely Tuesday Torah Talks, Chazaq's Tuesday program. Baruch Hashem, it's on many, many different apps and many different podcasts and all these different options on social media and online and all these different websites. Baruch Hashem, please make sure to like, to share, to forward, so everyone could be inspired. And Bezrat Hashem, we look forward to having the Geulah Shlema, the complete redemption. It should come speedily in our days. Amen. Amen.